welcome to this Department of Sociology Virtual Open Day. My name's Dr. Katie Harson. I'm the Deputy Director of Undergraduate Studies in Sociology. The purpose of this slideshow is to give you sort of a bit of information about the department, about the programs that we run, how things are organised. We're really sorry that we can't be with you in person today, but hopefully this will answer some of the questions that you might have had we seen you in person. So to tell you a little bit more about the department and how it looks, we have around 300 undergraduate students across our programs, around 100 postgraduate students, so that's students on our master's programs and our PhD students, and around 40 members of staff across sort of our academic and administrative teams. In terms of both our staff and our students, we have people from all around the world, so it's a very international place to be, and Warwick more broadly is a very international university. We're one of the bigger sociology departments in the UK. There's a huge breadth in terms of the teaching and the research that we do. So you get teaching and we do research in lots of different areas of sociology. But we're still small enough to feel friendly, and I think the students would tell you that they get to know us quite well. So we don't just appear for 1 hour a week in your lecture and then disappear back into our offices and you never see us again. We get to know our students pretty well over the course of the 3 years that they spend with us. As you're probably aware, we run a number of different degree programs within the department. The majority of our students are on the BA Sociology single honours degree, but what we do within that is allow you to graduate with a specialism in your final year if you want to. So if there's a particular area of sociology that you're interested in or you're passionate about, or you know that you want to go and work in that field, then you have the option to sort of gear your module choices around that area of sociology, and that will enable you to then graduate with a specialism in whatever it might be. So your degree certificate would say BA Sociology with a specialism in race and global politics, or with a specialism in social and political thought. This allows you to gear your degree a little bit more around the things that you're interested in, so that's one way of doing it. But it also helps you to stand out a little bit in the job market if there's an area of sociology or an area of work that you know that you want to go into where this would be useful, and it just helps you to say that your degree is something a little bit special. We also run joint honours programs with history, politics, global sustainable development and law. So you can take a joint honours program where you're split sort of across the two departments. They're all 3-year courses apart from law and sociology, which is currently a 4-year program. This is because law and sociology is a qualifying degree. So at the end of this, you are qualified to practice law in the same way as if you had taken a law degree. This element of qualifying degree is being gradually phased out, but for 2020-21 entry, this will still be the case, that your law and sociology degree will be a qualifying degree. All of the programs that we offer can be taken with an intercalated year, i.e. a year of studying abroad, and that's something that I'll come to a little bit later on in the slides. Okay, so to explain what it is that you'll be doing once you get here, our curriculum in the first year particularly is about levelling out the playing field and giving you a solid grounding in sociological theory, essentially. So you're at no disadvantage whatsoever if you haven't studied sociology before. If this is your first time coming to sociology, you won't be behind anybody else. The purpose of this first year is to give everybody the same grounding and teach you the things that we think as Warwick Sociology are important for you to have as sort of that grounding knowledge in sociology. So you take a combination of core modules and optional modules. In the first year, the majority of your curriculum is made up of core modules. So you take 2 core theory modules, history of sociological thought and class and capitalism. Then you take 2 core methods modules, so introduction to quantitative methods and researching society and culture. And then we made the decision a couple of years ago to embed gender and race as core elements of our curriculum in the first year. That's something that doesn't happen at all universities, so it's something that makes Warwick Sociology quite distinct. but it's something that we thought was important in terms of giving you that core grounding in sociology, that you also had this knowledge of race and gender as core issues. So the majority of your curriculum in the first year is made up of those core modules, and then each term you'll have one optional module essentially. So you can take optional modules from within the department. So the slide lists a couple of things that we currently have running as optional modules for our first years. You can also take any modules that are offered for first years in other departments around the university. So if you have a particular interest in history or chemistry or maths or whatever it might be, or you want to study a language, then that option is available to you in the first year. So you can take optional modules outside of sociology as well. Joint honours students don't take any optional modules in their first year because your core training is made up from the core modules from each of your departments. So if you're taking a history and sociology degree, for example, your curriculum will be made up of the core modules from history and the core modules from sociology. So you won't get the option to have optional modules in that first year, but you will do as you go into your sort of second and third years. You go into your second and third years or fourth years if you've taken law and sociology or you've taken a year abroad, your curriculum is a lot more free for you to choose the things that you're interested in. So in the second year, again, you have core theory and core methods modules. So you take design and conducting social research, practice and interpretation of quantitative research, and modern social theory as sort of your core theory and methods training. And all of your other options are made up of optional modules. In the third year, your only core module is the dissertation, which is a year-long research project, which is open to you to choose any area of sociology that you're interested in. You work one-on-one with an academic supervisor across the year, and you conduct a piece of research essentially, and then write it up in your dissertation. Again, this slide lists some of the optional modules that we have available. This isn't an exhaustive list by any means, but it gives you an idea of the kinds of areas of sociology that we have available, that we have expertise in. This changes year on year depending on whether people are on research leave or any new staff that come into the department, but there's always quite a broad range of options for you to choose from. And again, you can take any modules from outside departments. So across your second and third years, you're permitted to take 30 CATs of outside options. So 30 CATs, i.e. 2 modules usually, from other departments within the university. Or BA Sociology and Criminology. This is something that we've been developing over the course of a couple of years. We've invested a lot of sort of resource into this. We've got some of the biggest names, some real expertise in criminology in the department now in order to run this program. Some of your degree programs, some of your curriculum in the first year particularly will overlap with the students on BA Sociology, and some things will be more specifically geared towards you in terms of the criminology aspect. So in the first year, again, your core modules make up the majority of your curriculum. You'll take history of sociological thought and researching society and culture, which will give you that grounding in sociological theory and methods. You'll then also take criminology, theories and concepts, and crime and society to give you that grounding in criminology. Again, then you have 2 optional modules, so 1 each term that you can take from the list that we have available or from outside options. In the second year, again, your curriculum becomes a little bit more free, but you still have these core modules. So you have design and conducting social research, gender, crime and justice, and advanced theory in criminology and social justice. In your final year, again, your only core module is the dissertation, and the idea is that you would gear that around researching criminology, so something that fits within the remit of your degree program. The optional modules that we have available, so we have developed a number of optional modules that are sort of more criminology focused, so things like surveillance and security, punishment, justice and control, and state crime, human rights and global wrongs. You're welcome to take these if you're on the BA Sociology and Criminology program. Equally, you can take any of the other modules that we have available in sociology as options, or you can take outside options from other departments in the same way that our BA Sociology students can. If you're on the BA Sociology programme, you can also take these criminology modules. So these optional modules are also available to you if you're on the BA Sociology programme, but you have an interest in criminology as well. Okay, so to explain what your year looks like when you're here. The academic year is split into 3 terms. So the autumn term runs from October through to Christmas. The spring term starts in January and runs through to Easter sort of time, so the middle of March, and the summer term, and that will run through until June sort of time. The majority of our teaching in sociology happens across the autumn and the spring terms, so that will be sort of where your teaching happens. And across those 2 terms, our undergraduate students complete modules that amount to a total of 120 CATs or credits. Some of these modules that we offer are 30 CAT modules, so they run across both the autumn and the spring terms, i.e. you would start them in October and they would run through to March. But the majority of our modules are just 15 CATs, so they just run for 1 term at a time. So you'll arrive in October, you'll take 4 modules that will run for 10 weeks, and then at the end of those 10 weeks you'll be assessed on those 4 modules. You'll come back in January after Christmas and you'll take another 4 modules, so 4 new modules that will run through then to the Easter vacation. In terms of the assessments for each of these, you have that vacation period to do your assessments for the most part. So the majority of our assessments are due in sort of at the beginning of the next term. So you would have the Christmas vacation to work on them, and then you would submit them when you come back in January. And equally, when you do your spring term modules, then you would submit your work after Easter. Each module runs slightly differently in terms of the teaching style and the format. In your first year, the majority of your modules run as a lecture and a seminar. So you would have 1 hour a week, 1 or 2 hours a week, where all of you on the module are in the same space in those huge tiered lecture theatres, which is what you imagine university to look like. The lecturer will be there, they'll give you an introduction to the topic, and they sort of explain what it is that you're doing for that week. You would then later on in the week have a seminar, which is a much smaller group of students, so we try and keep them to sort of 15 or 16 in the first year, and with the idea that you have all read the same text, so you've read something in relation to the topic, and you have a much more interactive discussion around that topic based on sort of the core readings for that week. Some modules run as workshops, some modules run as labs, depending on what's sort of appropriate to the area of sociology and what the module convener, what the module leader thinks is the best way for you to learn. As you go into your second and third year, you'll find that more often you have these workshops, which are sort of smaller groups of students of around 20 to 30. They're longer, so they're 2 or 3 hours, and they're much more interactive, so you don't have this sort of split of a lecture and seminar. But equally, some of our second and third year modules run like that because it makes the most sense for them to run like that. So after you've done your autumn and spring terms, which are your sort of teaching heavy terms, the summer term then is dedicated to essay writing, to revision, to exams if you've got any. And students also use this period to do things that will sort of run into the summer vacation. So they use it for paid work, they use it for internships, they use it for personal research projects, and I'll talk a little bit later about the funding that's available for those and the support that's available for those. You might want to do some volunteering, you might want to just relax, you might want to go travelling, whatever that might be. So the summer term is sort of your essay writing term, you hand things in, but then it sort of bleeds into that summer vacation where you can use that time between June and October to do things that are interesting to you and that might be sort of CV building. You'll have noticed as I've been going through the curriculum and explaining what your modules look like in your first and second years, that there is this element of quantitative methods training. This comes from the fact that a few years ago, Warwick was chosen by the Nuffield Foundation to develop a Q-STEP centre. So we were one of 18 universities in the country that were funded by the Nuffield Foundation in order to develop our skills training for students in terms of their ability to analyse quantitative data. They recognised that lots of graduates were coming out of university without these skills, and this is something that was increasingly in demand by employers. So we're creating these huge data sets. We're collecting lots of information about people all of the time, and they didn't have the graduates who could deal with that data or make sense of it. So Warwick developed this Q-Step Centre, which was sort of across the social sciences departments, in order to embed that training into their degree programmes. So as I said, this is a skill that is in demand by employers, both in the UK and more broadly, globally, in terms of your ability to look at large-scale sets of data and make sense of them. All of our students across all of our programs, so whether you're taking the BA Sociology, the Joint Honours or Criminology, you get that quantitative methods training. So everybody at Warwick, everybody who comes out of Warwick with a degree from sociology will have these quantitative skills that look good on your CV. You can also pursue quantitative methods as a specialism if it's something that you're particularly interested in or good at. Or again, that you think it might be useful for whatever career path you might have in mind. But I should say that this shouldn't panic you. This isn't about you having to do maths as part of your degree at all. And if you have a chat to any of our students, they would say that this isn't what it's about. So it's about looking at big data sets and trying to make sense of them, usually via computer programs, rather than having to do sort of the numerical calculations. Our entry requirements are ABB at A level, except for our joint honours programmes, which have a slightly higher entry requirement of AAB. If you're coming in on an international baccalaureate, then it's 34 points or 36 for joint honours. And we also recognise other sort of non-traditional qualifications or international qualifications. So if you're coming via a non-traditional route, i.e. not through A levels or through the international baccalaureate, then get in touch with us just to check what the sort of requirements are. Just a quick word on assessment. We run two types of assessment in sociology, so formative assessment and summative assessment. You will hear these spoken about quite a lot. Formative assessment, particularly in your first year, there's this emphasis on the fact that you've never been to university before for the most part, that you don't quite know what's expected of you, and we don't expect you to know what's expected of you before you get here. So formative assessment is an opportunity for you to submit some work and get some feedback on it, but that doesn't count towards your grade for that module. So in the first year, this is primarily essays, so shorter versions of your longer essays, where you'll get a chance to have a go at writing an essay and you'll get some feedback on that before then you submit your final piece of work for that module. It might be an online quiz, it might be a presentation, whatever it is that the module convener thinks is the best way to develop your understanding of that module. But it's an opportunity to receive some feedback, receive some guidance without any pressure. It doesn't count towards any sort of final grade. Summative assessment, both in your first year but also your second and third years, varies across the modules. So the kinds of things, the kinds of ways that you'll be assessed varies depending again on how the module convener thinks is the best way to assess your understanding of that area of sociology. So it might be essays, it might be exams, it might be individual presentations, group presentations, podcasts, all manner of things. There's quite a variety of ways in which we assess you in your second and third years particularly. Okay, I realise there's been a lot of information across these slides, so the final thing that I want to talk to you about is some of the opportunities that are available to you outside of your sort of core curriculum and your academic learning. One of the things that I spoke about earlier on, which I can give you a little bit more detail on now, is the study abroad programme. So as I said, this is something that a number of our students take advantage of, and it allows you to have this year within your degree programme where you study at another university. So how it works is in your second year, you put in an application to go abroad in your third year. You would then do your third year abroad at your partner university and then come back and do your final year at Warwick after that. So in your sort of fourth year or your fifth year if you're going into law and sociology. Some partner universities teach in the local language, so if you have language skills, that's always an option that's available to you. but a lot of the universities will teach in English as well, so don't let that put you off if you can't speak another language. There will be plenty of options available to you. The list of partner universities is always changing. We're always adding new partner universities. Some of the ones that we've had students go to in the past are listed on the slide there. We always have students who go across Europe, but we've also had students who have recently come back from Chile. We always get a couple that go to Australia, to Monash. We've had somebody go to Canada this year. So there's lots of places available to you. At the moment, funding is available for students going to partner universities in Europe via the Erasmus scheme. This is all a little bit up in the air with Brexit, and we're not sure what's going to happen to that funding, but the university has committed to putting some funding in place. So this is something that will still be available to you, and there will be some funding that we can sort of provide you with or help you with. So that's one option for things that you might want to do. You might want to take a full year abroad and go and study elsewhere. And the students that we have do this always have the most amazing time, and they come back as these completely new people who have had this cosmopolitan experience. Other things that you can get involved in, so I did mention earlier the undergraduate research support scheme. So this is something that, again, a number of our students in sociology take advantage of this. And it's the opportunity to conduct a piece of research, usually in the summer term or across your summer vacation. The university will give you up to £1,000 to support that research, and you can really do anything that you're interested in. So if there's an area of sociology that you have studied in a module and then you think, I really would like to know more about that, or I know this particular group of people that it would be really interesting to do some research with, then there is funding available for you to do that. Again, you get allocated a academic supervisor, so you'll work with somebody within the department who will sort of guide your research and be available to help you in terms of both conducting it but also writing it up. When you conduct those sorts of research projects, you're also able to present them at the International Conference of Undergraduate Research, which is a university-wide event, and it also links Warwick with a number of different universities around the world. So you might be presenting your research and then on the same panel as somebody who is in Australia at Monash University presenting their research. Again, it's just a good opportunity, it's some skills training, and it's something that's interesting for you to get involved in. We have a couple of options in terms of getting your work published. So if you conduct a piece of research, or if you write an essay that you think is particularly good and you want to think about publishing that, you can look at the Reinvention Journal, which is a university-wide journal, or in sociology we have the Warwick Sociology Journal that publishes a couple of issues a year, and it's really just about focusing things around a theme, and then people will write pieces and we publish that journal. There's also opportunities to get involved on the editorial team for the Warwick Sociology Journal. So if it's an area that you think you might want to go into, or it's just something that you want to get involved in, then that is open to you. Another thing that we run each year, which is always quite popular with students, so those of you who can't quite commit to a full year of studying abroad might want to think about the international study trip. So each year in the last week of the spring term, we take 20 students with 2 members of staff to somewhere in Europe usually, for a week of sort of taking your sociological imagination abroad. We do some talks at the local university, so there's an academic element to it. We'll do some cultural things, but it's really about thinking about how the skills that you've learned in sociology at Warwick can be applied more broadly, more further afield. This trip is open to all of our undergraduate students, but also all of our postgraduate students, so our Masters and PhD students. And we usually get quite a good mix of students, so it's an opportunity to meet people and mix with people that you wouldn't necessarily meet. It's a less formal way to mix with whichever members of staff are taking you that week, and it's just a really good bit of fun. Other things that you can get involved in, so Routes to Sociology is a program that we run where we go into local schools and get people thinking about what university life is like, what life at Warwick is like, what it's like to do a degree. And we have ambassadors from within sociology who will go into those schools and give talks. And then the final thing that I should note is the Sociology Society, which is strictly students only, so no staff involved in the Sociology Society, and they are really super active and supportive in providing both academic support but also social events for sociology students. So they will run a couple of social events every term. They also run academic sort of support workshops for you, particularly in relation to those modules that people might struggle with or that people are finding things difficult with. And they are just a brilliant advocate for brilliant ambassadors for Warwick Sociology. They do a really good job of making you feel welcome and providing you with the support that you might not necessarily want to get from members of staff. Okay, I realised I said the last slide was the final thing that I wanted to say. This definitely is the final thing that I want to say. So we recognise that for a lot of you, this is going to be your first time away from home, and that might make you feel a bit worried. It might feel a little bit overwhelming. And this is just to reassure you that there is lots of support available to you, both within the department and within the university more broadly. So to tell you a bit about the specifics of that. Each student is allocated to a personal tutor who is a member of academic staff, and you'll meet them as soon as you come to Warwick. They will be your first point of contact if you have any concerns, but also if you want to just have a chat, talk about the things that are going well, as well as the things that you might be struggling with. So you can meet them one-on-one. You will meet them a couple of times a term, and they are sort of there to be your first point of contact if you're struggling with anything. We also have a director of student experience who can help you with careers support, with some academic writing skills. So the career support becomes a little bit more important as you go into sort of your third year or your second year. But he's there for any sort of support in terms of academic concerns, but also careers. Within the department, we run skills sessions. So again, we recognise you've never been to university before. We don't expect you to know what you need to do. So we run skills sessions to teach you about referencing or about how to use the library or how to write an essay. All those sorts of things are available. The Sociology Society, who I mentioned on the last slide, offer a mentoring program, which I cannot recommend highly enough. So in the first week that you arrive, they'll buddy you up with a student who's in their second or third year. And again, they will be there available for you to ask any questions, any concerns that you have, and the things that you might not want to ask members of staff about. They'll be able to advise you about the social elements of life at Warwick, but also anything academic that you're concerned about. And this program has been running for a few years, and it's a really fantastic way of settling you into Warwick and knowing that you've got somebody that you can ask who's been where you've been. More broadly across the university, so if you have more specific issues or need sort of more targeted support, we have a counselling service, there are disability services, we have dedicated careers advisor in sociology who can give you sort of a broader picture of careers in sociology, and all sorts of other services. So without going into too much detail, this is just to say that we know that this is a huge step for you, and there is lots of support available to you. For the most part, our students have a fine time, they come, they settle in, everything runs relatively smoothly. But if you hit any bumps in the road, there is lots of support available to you, and we're always here to sort of guide you back in the right direction.